Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So there's a lot to talk about and not so much time, so I'm going to try to do this as fast as I possibly can. But you probably see now there's been a proposal now that's gone on for a couple days now for the NHL picking back up. My assumption would be sometime around July with a 24-team playoff format. So now that has had some substance since then, has really been passed. Last night, I saw first reports around 6 p.m. Eastern time that the proposal has been approved by the NHLPA, which I believe means that there's a team representative, meaning one player from each team, that will be either for or against. And there was a decent amount of teams, I believe, that were against this type of format, but overall it did get approved. So now the next step is to, of course, take it to the NHL and finalize all the little details regarding the format and when hockey will really pick up, when they can start bringing players in, having some training camps or whatever it may be to get this thing rolling sooner rather than later. But this was a huge step for the NHL in making sure that they will play hockey once again for this season. Even if it is in the regular season, they will have a different type of playoff format. And this is benefiting a lot of teams, of course, that weren't necessarily in the playoffs going into the pause for the NHL season. But now I'm going to discuss what teams exactly are the biggest winners and what teams are necessarily the biggest losers from this approval for the 2014 playoff format. But I also want to mention, too, that I saw a report yesterday as well, which was quite interesting, that there were certain players and teams that didn't want the first round for basically the wild card round regarding teams that weren't in the playoffs before, for it to be, instead of a 3-game playoff format, to be a 5-game playoff for that first round, because they were worried about certain guys being hot to start off the playoffs, like Carey Price and Patrick Kane. Now, I thought that was quite interesting, given the fact that Patrick Kane makes more sense because we all know how amazing of a player he is. Even now, being in his mid-30s, he is electric, especially come playoff time. But a guy like Carey Price doesn't make too much sense to me. Nothing against Carey Price personally, but he hasn't been the best goalie in the NHL for a couple years now. And when he was, it wasn't for an extended period of time. I understand that he gets a lot of hype, of course, playing for a team with a historic franchise like the Montreal Canadiens, but seeing players really being worried about a guy like Carey Price, I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, him having rest will help him, of course, because he does take the bulk of the workload when he plays for the Canadiens, because they haven't had a significant backup really for the entirety of his career in Montreal. But besides getting some rest, I don't know why teams and players would be so worried. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. That really made them change the format. It almost feels like a sorry excuse for having 5 games instead of 3. But regardless, that seems like it'll be the case now for the elimination round will be around 5 games. So seeing the proposed format of teams who they will play against, and this could be subject to change over time, of course, but as of right now, it looks like there are a lot of teams that have some different matchups than were expected, at least going into the pause of the NHL season. So starting off with the winners, of course, I'm going to start off with the Vancouver Canucks. They easily are a winner in this scenario, as they weren't even 1 point out of the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference. They were only out by one less win. So having them now be in the playoffs will, of course, benefit them. And also, the Canucks would also be playing against the Wild, and whoever wins that round, I do believe, will play against the Colorado Avalanche. So regardless of who wins that round, that is going to be tough nonetheless, but that will help the Canucks at least make the playoffs, of course, when they deservedly so should be in it. But next, another winner, of course, is the Colorado Avalanche. There's so many reasons why the Avalanche are winners. Starting off, they are going to be healthy. I talked about in my previous video regarding teams that will benefit the most. Their whole roster is going to be healthy. You're talking the guy like Mikko Rantanen, Andre Burakovsky, Nazem Kadri, Nathan McKinnon, Philip Grubauer. The list goes on and on. They have so many guys injured, but they should all be healthy come playoff time. That's going to benefit them a ton. And now they have a chance of playing one of 2 teams that both weren't in a playoff spot. So that is going to benefit them a lot, versus had they had playoffs start right after the pause of the season, they would have played a higher contending team. I believe that team would have been the Dallas Stars. So them not having to play the Stars in the first round is going to benefit them as well. So Avalanche easily a winner in this situation. And next, I also have the New York Rangers. The Rangers benefit, of course, with getting into that playoff spot. And while they aren't necessarily as big of winners as some other teams, they are a star-studded team on the offensive front. They have an electric young blue line, and their goaltending situation is interesting to say the least, with Igor Shesterkin playing as well as he had since being called up from the AHL earlier this year, and Henrik Lundqvist. What are the Rangers going to do? I said this in my previous video regarding the teams that benefit the most from the modified playoff format. Are the Rangers going to consider giving Henrik Lundqvist one last run in the playoffs, or are they going to have Igor Shesterkin come in right away and try to have them have a deep run? It's going to be very interesting to see what happens to them, but they are easily winners as their young players are going to get playoff experience, and expect the Rangers to make some noise. I understand that they have been kind of an up and down team throughout the season, but their offense is elite, and that has been consistent throughout all of the NHL season up until the pause. And they would play the Carolina Hurricanes in that elimination round, best of 5, and then whoever wins that plays the Capitals. Next, for the winners, I have the Philadelphia Flyers, and that is solely because of the fact that the Flyers will play one of the Penguins or the Habs, of course, the Canadians. And the good thing for them is that even if, say, the Penguins win that round, they still have to go through a round before playing the Flyers, when originally they would have played each other, Flyers versus Penguins, in the first round. So that automatically gives the Flyers some help there and makes them an easy winner, in my opinion, given this format. Next, I have the Arizona Coyotes. The Coyotes are an easy winner too, as they're back in the playoffs after not being in the playoffs for quite some time and looming for a couple of years of just being out of playoff spot. Regardless if they have a deep run, this is going to be great for them and their fan base and the revenue, of course. And if they do win the first round, and they would be playing in that first elimination round against the Nashville Predators, if they do win that, then they play the Vegas Golden Knights. And that would be a very interesting series to see, as they have never played each other in the playoffs, of course, and it would kind of help start a good rivalry with Arizona and Vegas. It only makes sense. So having something like that happen would be very interesting, and I think would do great for their fan bases and just that whole area as a whole with hockey. And next now on my list for winners, I have, of course, the Dallas Stars. That was an easy pick as well, because if the playoff format would have been normal and just the regular season would have ended, the Dallas Stars would have played the Avalanche in the first round. So the fact that they don't have to do that easily makes them a winner, so they can avoid the Avs for a bit. And next now, I have for winners, I have the Nashville Predators, and I have the Preds too, because they would have played the St. Louis Blues if it was a normal playoff format as well, had the season just ended. So them being able to avoid the Blues and instead play a team not nearly as tough, no offense to them, but having to avoid the Blues in the first round is going to benefit them a ton, in my opinion. And then last for the winners, I have the Chicago Blackhawks, and there's a couple things. One is that they were nowhere near a playoff spot, and that is going to benefit them a lot just because of the fact that they wouldn't have made playoffs, obviously. And also, they have the experience. Yes, I know they got rid of Robin Lehner. That does kind of suck now, looking back that they're in the playoffs, but they do have Patrick Kane, who knows what it takes to win. They have Jonathan Toews, who can step it up still. They have Duncan Keith, who, when rusted, has been one of the best defensemen for quite some time, even though he is more in the latter years of his career. And they have some young, promising players. If Dylan Strome can step up, of course. If you have Alex DeBrincat, who I'm a huge fan of, if he can get rolling in the playoffs. And, of course, Dominic Kubalik, who's one of the most surprising rookies this year in this rookie class. All these guys, if they start clicking, then they can make some noise, especially in that first elimination round against the Oilers. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with them. But teams now that I really think lost the most, are the biggest losers in this format, really flip-flop from when I first made my video regarding teams that will benefit. I have the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the biggest reason is that if this proposed format goes through, from all the speculation we've seen, the Leafs would still play the Boston Bruins in the second round, technically, because their elimination round would be against the Blue Jackets, which will be a tough round. The Blue Jackets are going to be healthy at that point and are a very great defensively sound team, and it's quite the opposite of the Leafs. So it'll be a very interesting series, but even if the Leafs do win that series, then they have to play Boston again. So they can't get away from Boston no matter how much they would like to, and that is the biggest reason why they're a loser in this format, as of right now at least. And then next, I have the Washington Capitals. I have the Capitals solely because regardless if they play the Hurricanes or the Rangers, that is going to be kind of a tough series for the first round. These are two teams that are younger, have more than some of the most explosive offenses in all of the NHL. So having to play either of them is definitely going to be tough. We know the experience they've had with the Rangers in years prior, and it's normally heated series between the two. And if it's the Hurricanes, we know what happened last year with them, and who knows? Like, it could be very interesting, and that's why I think the Capitals really don't benefit a lot from this situation. And I also have the Vegas Golden Knights, and while Vegas doesn't have to play Winnipeg in the first round, which should benefit them quite a bit, they are going to play a team in the playoffs that they never played before, whether that be the likes of the Arizona Coyotes or the Nashville Predators. That is going to be maybe a little bit frustrating for the team, as they have never played either of these teams in the playoffs, and who knows what to expect from either of them. And then last on my list for teams that I think really lost from this format, I have to go to the Edmonton Oilers. I do like the Oilers a lot. They are one of my more liked teams. But the Oilers, who knows what can happen with Chicago? I've seen from the games I've seen them play against each other this season, they have been back and forth and really high scoring. And the likes of Kane and Taves and that experienced playoff team, that could be a problem for Edmonton that has been lackluster on the defense at times, and the goaltending is decent, but I wouldn't say fantastic. So Edmonton, I don't expect them to lose that round against the Chicago Blackhawks, but it won't surprise me at all if they give them a harder time than they would have expected if Kane heats up Taves and all those other experienced players who have won cups before. But with all those things being said, that is going to conclude my video for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like this proposed format of 24 teams? Do you think it's going to be the way that I explain it with these kind of matchups, or will it be a lot different? Please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear it. And with all those things being said, thank you all so much for watching. Please check out my previous videos. I'll have them right down here below for you. I just do consistent NHL content that I feel should be made for you lovely people, and this was definitely a topic that I wanted to do as it was approved by the NHLPA last night. But thank you all so much. Please like, subscribe, comment, all those great things, and I'll be back in a day or two.